Today, let me discuss to you the analysis of data. What is statistic? Statistical analysis or statistic is concerned with the development and application of methods and techniques for organizing and analyzing data so that the reliability of conclusion based on the data may be evaluated objectively in terms of probability. There are two major areas or types of statistics, the theoretical and applied. Statistical analysis may be used to accomplish four basic purposes. 1. A statistic may indicate the central point around which a mass of data revolve. 2. They may show how broad or diverse the spread can be for a mass of data. 3. Statistic may reveal how closely or distantly certain features within the mass of data are related, as well as with a relationship even exists. 4. They may indicate the degree to which the facts might have occurred by mere chance, or whether there is a probability of their having been influenced by some factors other than pure chance. In short, the basic purpose of statistical analysis is to summarize observations or data in such a manner that they provide answers to the hypothesis or research question. To keeping in mind that the statistical analysis cannot do interpretation, the researcher should be aware or other concerned in using statistics. For example, the nature of the data to a large extent determine the statistical techniques that can be used legitimately. That is to say, certain techniques are appropriate for use with categorical data, others with ordinal data, and so on. Second, the more control the researcher should think, the less is the need in general for certain statistical techniques. Most, if not all, of the important relevant variables are already controlled, and replication of the study is less likely to produce different results. In order to organize and analyze the data collected for a study, it is necessary to place them in categories. The identification or establishment of categories should take place before the data are gathered. The actual categorization of data takes place during or after the collection process. In establishing categories, four basic rules or guidelines should be followed. First, the set of categories or values, example the classification scheme, for any one variable should be derived from a single classificatory principle which is determined by the research question or hypothesis being investigated. Second, each set of categories should be exhaustive. That is, it should be possible to place every observation in one of the categories of the set. This does not preclude the use of a miscellaneous or catch-all category such as other. If a large percentage of such observations seems to have certain characteristics in common, the establishment of one or more additional categories should be considered. Third, the categories within each set shall be mutually exclusive. This means that it should not be possible to place a specific observation correctly in more than one category. Last but not least, the development of a category should be based on a sound knowledge of the subject matter. A person establishing categories for reference question should have had enough reference experience and have done enough reading about the topic to be able to predict types of questions that will appear in a study and establish categories accordingly. Once the categories have been established and data assigned to them, it is necessary to convert the new data or responses to numerical codes so that they can be tabulated. One of the most important considerations in coding is reliability. Problems of reliability in coding can result from inadequacies in the data. In actually coding the data, researchers traditionally have transcribed the observation or scores for each individual or case from the data collection instrument to coding or transfer sheets. Once the coding sheets were complete, the researcher, if he or she were analyzing them manually, could then work directly from them. But if the mass of data was large or statistically techniques to be employed were relatively complex and time-consuming to conduct, the researcher would probably elect to use a computer to analyze the data. There are two different types of statistical treatment. We have a descriptive and inferential statistic. For the descriptive, we usually use the mean, the percentage, the measure of variability, which is the standard deviation, the variance, and the range. Also, we use the frequency, the count, when we are doing or solving the descriptive statistic. Now, when we are using inferential statistic in solving or treating the data that we have, we use the parametric tests, which are the t-test, the Pearson's correlation, the ANOVA, the z-test, and etc. We use them in order for us to solve difference, the significant difference, and the significant relationship on a particular data that we get. Measures of central tendency. They usually use in solving or treating data or finding of the research. So we have the mean. This is the arithmetic average of the distribution. They also call that weighted mean, median, the middle value that separates the higher value and the lower value equally and the most frequently occurring value. Usually, it is used for usual research is the rated mean only because they want to get the average of a specific data. For the measures of variability, we have standard deviation, a measure of dispersion around the mean, variance, the square of the standard deviation, and the range is the difference between maximum and minimum value. In this portion, they usually use the standard deviation because here we can see it the dispersion of the scores or the distance around the mean. So this is what we call standard deviation. Now for the t-test, this allows the comparison of the mean of two groups. If when we are measuring the two groups, we use t-test. T-test is used to determine significant difference between the mean of two groups. Analysis of variance or ANOVA. A general method of drawing conclusion regarding differences of population means when two or more comparison groups are involved. If you are comparing two groups, you will use t-test. But if you are comparing three groups, you will be going to use the analysis of variance. But if you have two groups, you can also use t-test, but it's a long method. Why not use t-test? Because t-test is a special case of ANOVA when considering only two groups, but if you are having three groups or five groups of people, you can use analysis of variance. T-test and ANOVA are used to compare, meaning to say we are looking for significance difference, but correlation is different. It allows an examination of the relationship between variables. So there are two different variables that we are comparing now. We are comparing two different variables in ANOVA and t-test. The variables should be the same. But in correlation, let's say score and the height of the student, there is a relationship between the height and the score of the student, so that these two different variables are looking to the relationship. So, is there significant relationship between the variables? Are they positively or negatively related? So those are the usual questions that we ask in the correlation. Non-parametric statistics are considered to be distribution-free. That is, they do not require the assumption of a normal population and therefore are often used with smaller samples. As they involve weaker assumption, they are less powerful than the parametric tests and require larger sample in order to yield the same level of significance. If your data is not normally distributed, you use a non-parametric test. Example, the Mann-Whitney U-test or Spearman correlation. The most common parametric and non-parametric tests are usually for the most common parametric test. There is always a non-parametric counterpart. If you have two dependent samples, the parametric test is paired sample t-test and the non-parametric test is the Wilcoxon test. If you look at dependent sample, it is the unpaired sample t-test and the Mann-Whitney U-test. If you have more than two independent samples, you will use the analysis of variance or the Kruskal-Wallis test. And finally, if you will have more than two dependent groups, you will use the ANOVA repeated measures or the Friedman test. If you want to calculate the correlation between two variables, you can use either Pearson correlation or the Spearman rank order correlation. In using a statistic to test hypotheses, one must always keep in mind that statistical inferences are based on probability, and one can never rely on statistical evidence alone for a judgment of whether a hypothesis is true. Such a decision must be based on the presupposition or conceptual basis of the research as well. Finally, weighted data, messing data, small sample sizes, complex sample designs, and capitalization on a chance in fitting a statistical model are sources of potential problems in data analysis. When one of these situations exists, statistics should be used with extra caution. Today, quantitative analysis is almost always done by computer programs such as SPSS and MicroCase. Numerical data can be submitted into statistical programs on personal computers or PCs and servers. As computing power increases, statistic programs are continually being updated. Using a statistical software package via servers is an efficient technique for analyzing large amounts of data. An example of such statistical package is BMDP software. It can be used for a variety of statistical analysis and is not limited to medical research. Another comprehensive computer system for data analysis is known as SAS, or Originally Statistically Analysis System. SAS can be operated through graphical interface or via application programming interfaces or APIs. Probably the most popular package is IBM's SPSS, or Statistical Package for the Social Sciences. It provides a suite of modules containing numerous statistical procedures from sample tables to multivariate analysis. Other SPSS features include a conversational software system which allows interaction between the data and the user, a variety of data import and export modes, and support the Python scripting. StatPack for Windows, a software package that was developed for marketing and survey research, provide modules containing many of the basic and advanced statistical methods used in library and information science research. The analysis of qualitative data differs from the analysis of quantitative data not only in the nature of the data but also in the nature of the process. Example: qualitative analysis is not perceived as a separate piece as in qualitative research. In fact, qualitative researchers have frequently suggested that research design, data collection, and analysis are simultaneously and continuous processes. One of the major objectives of qualitative data analysis is the generation of concept. The general process typically involves immersing oneself in the data, looking for patterns, identifying surprising events, and being sensitive to inconsistencies. That will be all. Thank you.